Hey there, everyone, and welcome back to SuperIdols RPG. As always, I'm your GM, ErynCerise, and with me today is Dana.
Hello.
Yes, we're having just a little solo session right now as an interlude between the explosive end of Arc 2 and the, I guess, true start of Arc 3? I'm not sure how I'm structuring this.
We'll figure it out. That's easy for me to say. You'll figure it out.
Yeah. So welcome to this episode 1 of Arc 3 interlude, prologue, whatever it ends up being. We're glad you're here regardless.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got a couple fun things that we want to do for our darling Valerie today. First of which is, it was said a while back in the previous solo sessions episode, but Mary Rain had some plans for Vivi after she got back from Camp Grandstar that she needs to get around to following through with. Namely, she has 2 dedicated trainers that Mary Rain wants her to get started with and start training more with her powers and performance techniques with. You know that their names are Abby and Ray, and that you are going to meet them this weekend at Rain Shadow's dedicated training gym. So I guess, are you going there just as Valerie for now, or are you going straight as Vivi? What do you think?
I'm going as Valerie, and I will change when I get there.
Alright, so when you get to the Rain Shadow gym, it's a pretty nice standard gym. It's got training mirrors like you would see in a dance studio, but there are also, like, bars, balance beams, training dummies, ropes, crash mats, like, basically just all the fun gymnastics stuff in there as well, and it's quite large. And of course, there are power barriers in place to keep everything insulated, so you don't have to worry about that. And as you walk into the room, you see there's nobody else who's using the gym today. You must have the entire place to yourself for this session. The only people who are here are a man and a woman who you recognize from the photo that Mary showed you before. These two, Abby and Ray, were with her in a photo with Mary when she was a lot younger, probably like late teens to early 20s. And to recap, at the time, in that photo, they looked like they were kind of like a pop-punk outfit. Mm-hmm. Like, Mary Rain had some wilder makeup and hair choices, and all of them looked like they had very colorful outfits. And the 2 people you see in before you, they definitely look like older versions of the people in that photo, but they do look a little more downtrodden, let's say, than they did in that photo. The woman, Abby, is a shorter lady with kind of red-brown hair. It's done up kind of in like a messy bun. She's wearing a creamy yellow t-shirt with a faded rainbow on the front and orange track pants. She looks at you when you come in, and she looks kind of like she's going to be trying to be smiles and energy for you, but you can tell that this is probably not the first session she's done today. She already looks a little bit tired. And the man, Ray, he's a bit taller. He's a bit of a burlier guy. He has curly graying beard and dark shaggy hair. He is wearing a gray hoodie with a University of Cadence logo on it in faded blue text. And he's very much not hiding his tiredness because he came in his pajama pants and he's holding a mug of coffee.
I think I just wave and say, hello, I was sent here to train.
Yeah, and Abby turns to you and she looks like she's ready to greet you, and she gives you kind of a nice, slightly awkward wave, and she says, "Oh, yes, Valerie, we've heard so much about you. Thanks so much for coming. My name is Abby, this is Ray. I'm sure Mary's told you about us. We're very excited to work with you today."
Yes.
Ray just kind of grunts like, "Nice to meet you."
Yeah, it's nice to finally meet both of you.
Yeah, Mary has just been singing your praises to the high heavens here. It's clear she believes a lot in you and a lot in your potential. She wanders closer to you and speaks a little bit softer, even though this place is fairly private. She's like, "Mary said that she had told you about the thing with the
powers."
Yeah.
Yes. She's helped me with my powers too. So, yes, she told me that you both helped her with putting on the kind of shows that she did
Yeah, we still do that as much as we can. I know that Mary doesn't like to hold as many real shows as she used to, which is, I don't know, kind of a relief, but like, it's, I'm not going to get into this now. We don't need to get into this now. And Ray does that little like thing where he blows up a little strand of his hair and is like, yeah, no, not in the mood right now, Abby, let's not.
Valerie's posture was very straight and at attention, like she is when she's usually talking to Mary Rain, but the more clear it is that Ray and especially Abby are talking more casually about Mary, and they're not like judging everything she does, like they're going to report it back. Valerie's sort of relaxing.
Yeah, it definitely seems like neither of them is really like that comfortable talking about Mary. Like, you don't have to talk to them about that now, obviously, but like, they're not going to tell on you to senior management, let's say. But yeah, so like you said, I know that Mary's worked with you already in the past, and she kind of starts to go through some of the things that Mary would have trained with you before and asks you like what exercises you've done and what kind of control issues you've had or anything like that. And probably when you get to the issues of control, that's probably a good point to pick up that conversation. Like Abby asks, like, how has your control been lately? I know you went to Grand Star this weekend. I know that you probably got some great help from Prophetess and Conduit there. Like, I know that they're extremely talented people. Did you learn much from them, or?
Well, I don't know about that. They seem to be focused more on talking about potential and bringing out more abilities that people had than on control. I think I have been getting better at controlling my powers, but I don't know how to hold back, or I try to hold back and I can't do anything, or I lose my transformation. I don't know how to find a middle ground when I'm upset and using my powers, I think is what I've found.
You know what? I'm not surprised that all they were focused on was the big flashy stuff. That's what people pay for at camps like that. And I know Conduit, at least he's a good guy, but like I know he's beholden to whatever rules they have there. And I'm sorry if he pushed you too hard in that direction. And just generally like, but yeah, no, I think you're right. You absolutely need more of a way to focus and keep that control, or at least if there is some kind of emotional upset or pressure or anything like that, you need a way to regain that focus as quickly as possible, because it can get real, I'm sure you know, it gets real ugly.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, well, I guess there's not really a great way to ease into this other than let's see kind of what you can do, and we can maybe try and figure out what would work best for you just based on the standard exercises. And he starts to get you going on a couple of maybe like standard. First, like, he's not even going to ask you to transform at first. Like, he wants to see like kind of how good you are like at standard like physical gymnastic stuff. Not anything complicated, but just like balance and core strength and that kind of stuff, just to see like if there's any weak points there to focus on that might translate into your transformed form as well. Like, how good do you think Valerie is at phys ed, basically?
Well, she's probably done this sort of training before. I think she's not otherwise a physically active person, but has had to do regular training, transformed and untransformed.
Right.
She's capable, but not, excellent at it.
And do you think there's a particular type of exercise that she would be better or worse at than others? Like, is there something like the dreaded rope climb or like something like that would trip her up more than another?
Yeah, I mean, the rope climb, certainly. I think she's focused more on endurance and agility over strength. So something that requires a lot of upper body strength like that would be more difficult.
I think at some point Abby and Ray are going to get you going up on the rope, which is not going to be your favorite. And as you're going up the rope, you don't quite have the core strength of a trained athlete, so it is a bit more of a struggle for you. And as you start to shake as you get further up the rope and your strength starts to fail a bit, the ropes start to sway underneath you. And you see that Ray is actually starting to swing the rope beneath you to make this more difficult for you. He's not doing it very, violently, but, just enough to make you more unsteady.
I think I get annoyed, but I don't say anything. I just concentrate on climbing. I'm still in trying to prove myself attitude, so I'm not going to complain, but just focus on the task at hand.
He starts doing it more.
At a certain point, I'm still not going to complain, but at a point I have to, stop making progress and hold in place just to not fall off.
And I think at this point, Abby's going to call up to you and yell up, "Come on! Isn't this frustrating? You're not going to say anything about this?"
I'm not supposed to complain about training. It's training.
Well, in this case, let me make it a little bit clearer for you, just to make things a bit easier. Valerie Pearce, I give you permission to complain about whatever is bothering you.
Well...
Ray is still shaking the rope beneath you more vigorously now.
Yeah, I'm probably, having trouble just responding to that because I'm focusing on this. Well, if you're trying to piss me off, then it's working.
And at that, Ray actually does let go of the rope at that. And Abby, through her slightly tired look, does grin up at you. And how did you feel being interrupted in your climb like that? You were already doing something difficult, and we just made it harder for no reason. How does that make you feel?
I'm already being tested on something that I know will be hard for me, and I don't... If I'm already trying and struggling, then what's the point of making it harder? You already know that I can't do it.
Good. Tell me more. What else frustrates you? Not just here, but generally.
Look, is this supposed to be therapy too? Is that I want to be an idol and I have to be perfect and I'm not perfect, and every time I mess up, I know that Mary Rain is breathing down my neck. I know that everyone watching is waiting for me to slip up because everybody except my teammates is trying to get one up on me and get above me. So every time I lose control or every time I hold back too much, that's just weakness that everyone sees immediately. How about that?
Abby nods to you and she gestures for you to come down the rope. And she says, "I think that sounds pretty shitty. And I know this is a little weird, it is a little therapy-like, but this is kind of what works for us in terms of controlling our powers. From what we've heard about you, you are fairly reserved, and knowing Mary, she likes to exacerbate the issue of forcing people to do things her way and not talk back to her about it. But the thing she would realize if she had any kind of interest in maintaining her powers properly, is that bottling things up like that is really, really bad for the stability of your powers."
Valerie's climbed down by the time Abby finishes, and she hasn't started crying, but she's got the look of someone who's pouting because they're absolutely not going to cry.
Yeah, and Abby at this point, she doesn't know you that well, but she does, open her arms to give you a hug if you want it.
Yeah, I'll just sort of lean into it a little bit and accept that. Yeah.
And so she gives you a bit of a hug there. And as she's doing so, you hear Ray behind her saying yeah, no, we have certain disagreements with how Mary's been running the show the last few years. And we've tried talking to her. She used to listen, but she developed her own ideas about what it took to make it in the music industry and what was working, what should work for her, should work for everyone else. And And Abby concurs, like, yeah, no, it's not been great for the last several years, and we really wish we could be doing more, but there's only so much we can do under our current contracts, I think. But we do want to make sure that within the power that we do have, we want to do what we can for the idols under Mary's wing.
Thank you.
But yeah, no, Mary she's so focused on being the best and being perfect and suppressing anything that doesn't fit her image of perfection that she just doesn't understand how our magic even works anymore, really, I feel like. And I know that not a lot of people understand how this stuff works, but just from the way we've always felt it, I think being in touch with your emotions and being in touch with what you really want, that seems to be the best way to really, like, have a hold on how your powers work and how in tune with them you are, and just being, like, more, like, getting to know the magic within you, basically. I know that sounds like a Saturday morning cartoon talking at you, but it really is kind of how it works. It feels like to me, anyway.
Yeah, I'm never sure if it's the magic in me or if it's just from her, but Valerie, like, looks down at her right hand and says, look, when I joined my current group, I thought that I had to be the top idol of the group. Mary told me this was supposed to be a way for me to get more publicity and experience, and that I should make sure that it served my needs. I thought that I had to be opposed to them, but the more I realize that they're my friends and I can trust them, the stronger I've gotten.
That sounds about right to me. Like, Ray and I have been together for God knows how long, and, like, we've been through some rough stuff together, and she looks over at Ray and gives him a warm smile, and he gives her a quite warm smile back, and they are, like, a couple, it seems like, from what you gather.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, yeah, no, and I don't know how I would have gotten through some of that stuff without being able to, like, confide in Ray and, like, be able to, like, well, support him in the hard times as well. And he picks up where that thought leaves off, and he says, yeah, no, it's I know that we look kind of rough, and it's just because we're doing, like, so much work right now, but, like, it's still great to be able to work together all day, every day, and that's kind of part of why we don't give it up, too. Like, we still get to be together and work through things together and help other young people work things through together, and I know that Mary has kind of been, like, not introducing you to a lot of the other talent at Rain Shadowed because she wants to minimize the bleed or whatever and he swears a bit under his breath. But, like, if you want to do some, like, sessions with some of the other idols here, or even just bring, like, your team here, like, I think doing this with your friends is, like, it's a good feeling, and it's good for you.
Yeah, I'd like that. I'll see if the rest of the group can, if they want to come here. We've been, finding different ways to train together, so that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure, this space has got to be better than, like, whatever you've got at the school, so for sure, like, if you ever want to have your group come here and practice, or just exercise, or even just hang out, just let us know, and first, I guess we'll double check the fucking schedule. But yeah, the space will be available to you, and will be available to you as well.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. That's,
And, sorry for shaking the rope under you, he says, looking, like, slightly embarrassed.
No, I get it. I said I have trouble keeping control when I'm angry. It's kind of obvious now.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And yeah, like Abby said, we don't want you to be afraid to tell us how you're really feeling. Again, that's kind of important to being a super idol, we feel like. And from what you're telling us, it seems like you're doing well with your team and they're helping you gain more control, which is exactly what we would hope for and what we'd expect to hear. And we want to help you be able to feel what you want to feel, express what you want to express, especially since that's, and he chuckles to himself, isn't that what the music is supposed to be all about, right?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. There's not many people I can talk to about this whole thing because of the contract, so it's just good to know that, I don't know, that you know what I'm dealing with.
Yeah, Abby smiles and pats you on the shoulder, like, yeah, for sure. Like, again, if you want to just vent about Mary, for sure, like, call or text us or anything. Like, our lines are secure. We're not going to tell on you to her. So just send us all caps texts in the middle of the night, even if you want to yell about her. We know how it goes. I swear she didn't used to be this bad. I just, but we know.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I really, really appreciate that too, but we should also do more actual training, I think.
Yeah. And at this point they do, like, ask you to transform, and they start doing a few more, like, standard exercises with you.
Mm-hmm.
They're not using the same techniques that Prophetess and Conduit would have used because they don't have that same power set.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they do some exercises that maybe you would be familiar with from your training with Mary, and also a few ones of their own design. Abby, in particular, has lightning powers, so one of her favorite things to do with you in this session ends up being, like, you've got your purple energy swords, so she ends up doing, like, a mock Star Wars recreation with, like, force lightning with you at one point.
Oh, Vivi just loves that.
Yeah. And Ray, unlike Vape, has actual water powers, so he is able to conjure and control large volumes of water, so he's able to try to get you to maybe, like, dodge some, like, water spheres, and let you, like, shoot at, like, walls of water or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see why their powers would be helpful for helping out someone on stage whose name is Mary Rain, basically.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think Vivi also asks for help specifically with, like, you know, summoning and controlling a lot of different constructs at once.
Mm-hmm.
Since that's where she's lost control before, and also just, like, trying to strengthen her telekinesis so she can move bigger things around, since she can't move people yet, or really anything much besides her own constructs.
What kind of constructs do you think you're making right now as you do this?
The thing that she's been trying to do and having trouble with is making a platform that she can lift up while she's standing on it. Instead of just being, like, on the ground and pushing up. I
think Ray, in that case, would be best equipped to help you with that. Maybe as you try to lift up one of these constructs off the floor, he puts a little, like, buoy of water underneath it to help keep it buoyant for you as you get used to the feeling of lifting it off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And they just keep doing these sorts of exercises with you to kind of get you used to how that feels. And also, as you create these constructs, I think Abby is, she's saying, like, okay, so, like, as you create these platforms, I know they don't look like animate objects or people or anything like that, but I find it helpful to think of creating something that's, like, separate from me as, like, a partner that I've asked to help me. So, like, she conjures, like, a humanoid figure that is made of lightning next to her that is shaped like Ray and mirrors his movements, much to his chagrin. And she grins. And she says, I think of them as my little buddies, basically. I don't know if that's the same vibe that you want for yours, because you have a whole different vibe from me. But it just, like I said, it helps to think of the magic within you as, like, a friend to you, or, like, a partner, or something that you're working with as opposed to controlling or wielding.
Oh, okay. And Vivi creates another one of these platforms and tries to, like, picture this as something she can quietly ask for help or something like that. I think she's sort of struggling with this, and then she pictures the crystal that appeared during the raid on Crimson Signal. Because that's, like, aside from her own constructs, it's the closest, like, representation she's seen of her own powers. And, like, pictures that as almost like, you know, a magical girl companion. Helping her lift this platform that she's standing on.
Yeah, and I think as you do that, you do feel like a nice warm pulse in response in your chest. Not like it's sentient, more like it's like just like a positive reaction within your body. But you do feel that within you. It's worth noting that you haven't been able to make that crystal appear again since you left the alternate Crimson Signal dimension. But you've been able to conjure that same feeling of warmth again, and you feel it now as you create these constructs, and you are able to have an easier time lifting them off the ground, I think.
All right. Yeah, Vivi's just concentrating as she sort of lifts. I think it's probably a little bit wobbly as she lifts herself up off the ground on this little circular platform and then carefully lowers herself back down again.
Good, that was really good, Abby says, and she gives like a little clap for you. That was like double the height that you got off the first one.
Thank you. Thanks, that your advice helped a lot.
Oh, that's good to hear. I'm glad. Not all the kids get it. Some of them take to it real well. Others are a little more stubborn, or Mary's taught them too well. So I'm glad that you're taking to it. I think you continue on with these exercises for a bit. You get the disc a little bit higher off the ground each time. Maybe once or twice you do slip and fall off it into the little floating pool of water underneath. But at least you don't hit your butt on the floor. And you can instantly magical costume change the soaking wet clothes away, at least.
That's the biggest bonus with magic.
Yeah. But yeah, I think you do see some pretty good success and consistency towards the end of the session, and I think you end up focusing more on that as it becomes clear that this is something that you really want to work at. So by the end of the session, I think you're in a place where, like, you can get your disc off the ground. Like, how far do you think would be reasonable? Do you think you would want her to take it?
I'd say, like, a few feet off the ground, like, not enough to, you know, fly up and away somewhere, but enough to, like, be very, you know, clear from the ground and able to move around with some more practice. I'm picturing, like, you know, Static's, like, disc from Static Shock, if you've seen that show.
Very long ago in my memory, but I remember enough. So I think, yeah, I get that idea. Yeah, so you get this disc pretty stable a few feet off the ground to where you don't need the water underneath by the end of the session.
Yeah, I'm just really happy with that, and also there's a real sense of, like, you know, there's some adults that, you know, are really in the idol industry that, you know, have a lot of experience that Valerie has worked with, and there's, like, her friends that she's been able to be sort of relaxed around and open with. But this is the first time she's probably had this sort of training session with people that, you know, are more experienced. They're not also figuring everything out, but who she is starting to feel like she can trust to not be judging everything she does.
Yeah, and it really is a shame that you haven't been training with them up to now, and really the only reason that you hadn't been is that Mary is so cagey about their, like, connection to her and, like, what they do for her, and she doesn't even tell everyone who works with them what the deal is necessarily, but even just people knowing that they're around feels like something that she's paranoid about, and, like... it's really, now that you're finally getting to work with them, this feels like a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, I think the more she learns about that relationship from them and thinks about it herself, the more there's sort of a dawning realization of how completely paranoid she's been, that she can't share any of where she gets her powers from, and where how she's worried about losing them. She, like, begins to realize that it's like it hasn't occurred to her before that Mary Rain has a similar sort of paranoia.
Food for thought, certainly.
Yeah, I think she'll even say that to Abby and Ray toward the end, she'll say, I've really been struggling with trying to talk to people while not being able to say in most cases what I'm worried about with my powers, and why I struggle with them and wonder if I should really have them. And I have to be so careful about not letting anything slip, but I never realized that Mary has been going through something like that too.
Ray can't help but roll his eyes a little bit, but Abby looks more sympathetic when you say that. And she says, yeah, we do try to be understanding of that. Like I said, she didn't used to be this bad about everything. Like, she used to be fun back in the day, back when things were a little more loose between everybody. And I don't know. I think just, it feels cliche to say, but fame does change some people. And she's very focused on holding on to that fame in whatever way she can. And no matter how much we've tried to reassure her that she's valid and powerful, even without all the flashy stuff, like, the executives above her breathe down her neck about as much as she breathes down everyone else's. So to that extent, we understand. But Ray cuts in at that point, is like, but that doesn't make it right, Abby. Like, she's borderline abusing these kids sometimes. Like, what? I know we can't do a lot, but we need to talk to her again at some point. Like, we need to do something. And Abby just looks uncomfortable. She's like, I know. Talking to her is not easy.
Yeah, Vivi's also just like looks uncomfortable at that. It like isn't sure what to say or if she should say anything.
Yeah, sorry about this. I know this is a bit awkward. I guess just to assure you, Valerie, I think we're gonna try and talk to Mary again at some point and see if we can like get her to ease up a little bit. Like, it's been a while since we tried last. Maybe she's, I guess if she's sending you to us finally, maybe she might be in a mood to hear it. We'll try, I think.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I guess I don't really know that side of her, but
yeah, well, she doesn't let it out to many people, that's for sure. I mean, we only know just because we've known her for so long. We were all like college buddies together.
I can't think of like a specific thing to say to that. I think this is probably a point where the conversation just like awkwardly grinds to a halt.
Maybe. Yeah, and probably just after Abby says that, Ray just mutters to himself like, yeah, well, it's certainly been a long time since the Mary of those days now, hasn't it? And Abby kind of like just shushes him and she says, look, we don't want to put a damper on the end of your session. You did really good today. I think we made some really good breakthroughs. And just keep in mind, no matter whatever pressures that Mary puts on you, you're more than whatever power she thinks that you can put up on stage. You're your own complex person with your own desires for the kind of music you want to make and the kind of shows you want to put on and, yeah, the kind of magic that you want to use. And no matter what she says, no matter what legal threats she hangs over your head, she ultimately doesn't have control over who you are. So I'll leave you with that, at least, I think. And Ray does nod at that. He can get on board with that sentiment.
Vivi nods again and says, that really does mean a lot to hear. Thank you. That helps.
I'm glad. Thank you for listening to the first of our 4 interlude minisodes. Valerie/Violence Violet was played by Dana Lexa, who can be found on Twitter @AuthorX. Dialogue and cleanup editing was done by Kathleen Childs, whose work can be found on the Sword of Symphonies podcast at peachgardengames.com. Full credits for these minisodes will appear at the end of the 4th installment. In the meanwhile, here's a shout out to this week's cheerleaders on Patreon: Adam K., Orabolt, Blake1995, and Chris T. Thanks so much for your support, And stick around for an ad from some of our friends at Be Gay Roll Dice.
We're Control Group, and we test systems so you don't have to. What kind of systems could you find on the only black and queer-led TTRPG system testing podcast? Why would I tell you when I could serenade you to royalty-free music? Western system gunfights, you should check out Gunsight, Stranded Interstitial, Patreon sneak peeks, Sci-fi's your thing, check Lasers and Feelings, Monster of the Week, Tome of Mysteries. We just test the systems, so you don't have to even do the math to. Anime chosen in the last shonen, Monster Hearts Fellowship, Warmer in Winter, Song of Fire and Ice, Houses of Wands but nice, Dennis is Unfinished, Magical Western. We just test the systems, so you don't have to even do the math to. We just test the systems. Your Adam Driver's roommates groups you have to create. Fiasco, Pleasant, even ask, hey son, are you winning? Worldwide Wrestling, Hero Dog saves town. Charlie's hosting a party, news hounds are tardy. Thirsty sword lesbians, Austin era host. If you find this interesting, check out our thing where podcasts are available. You can laugh until you're sore. One set of footprints in the sand, diversity in your hand. Bits, crits, MB takes, rock and roller cola walls. You don't have that last one, I just really like that line. Filled with mini campaigns for ADD brain. We just test the system.